Hello, and welcome to another episode of Grief in the Raw. Y'all, we are over halfway through the season, and I'm so delighted, as always, to bring you another heartfelt conversation of growth and triumph through grief. Because while we grieve, we still are doing all the things and showing up in all the spaces and all the ways. And this special guest is no different. I want to introduce to you Dr. Rebekah Cross. Hi, Rebekah.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, all the butterflies for this conversation. I have been a follower of yours, a friend from a distance, if I can say. And I am just so encouraged by all of the light that you share on the world. So the fact that I get to welcome that in and invite you to this sacred table to discuss, it just fills me. And I feel very blessed to be here with you.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah. Well, y'all, we have a really cool episode in store for you. Something a little bit different. If you've been following along with the show, you know that we talk all things grief, to demystify things with it, to unpack it in actionable, safe spaces, in small doses. And I will tell you, when I first started this project, I knew and God placed on my heart that I didn't just want to explore parental loss grief, which is the grief that I have been processing myself. I knew that to be a full resource and well of knowledge, wisdom, and empowerment, it needed to examine grief of all angles. And so today's message and today's discussion is centering grief and cancer survivorship. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend, fellow Tar Heel, Dr. Rebekah Cross. She is a mother, wife, cancer survivor, and assistant professor of public health sciences at the University of Chicago. Chicago, stand up! Her research and writing focuses on the ways racism has shaped neighborhoods, housing, and health for Black families. Rebekah earned a PhD from UCLA Fielding School of Public Health, a master's in sociology from American University, and a BA in political science from UNC Chapel Hill. Y'all, please join me in giving a warm welcome to my sister, Dr. Rebekah Cross.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So as we always start, I want to check in with you. I want listeners to check in with themselves. We do something called the grief scale, where we discuss from 1 to 10 where we are on the grief scale. This helps us to check in with our bodies, helps us to set intentions for the discussion. Sometimes we're a 1, and a 1 is very light. We're not really feeling grief in our body or on our minds today, all the way up to, of course, 10 is just an overwhelming feeling of grief and loss. So wherever we are, we want to make sure we check in and be honest with our scale and where we are. So I would love for you to share with me, where are you on your grief scale today from 1 to 10?
Yeah, I love that. I would say right now I'm about a 4. It's so interesting because I just came from a doctor's appointment. And so I'm getting like prodded and poked and, had blood drawn and all these things. And so, usually I'm in a worse mood after, doctor's appointments because they're just a reminder that I'm still very much in this thing. But I actually recently started antidepressants, which we can talk about a little bit later.
Yes.
So I think that's been helping with my mood a bit. So I'll say a 4.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, we will get into all the things. I am probably at a 2 today. Typically I function around a 4 and a 5. Last night I took a bubble bath, just a good old fashioned bubble bath. And I I have found that there have been several tools that I can just bring out when I'm feeling super griefy. Yesterday was a pretty heavy day. So I said, okay, I need to end the day with intention. I need to take a bath. But even more than that, I allowed for my spouse to have the kids 100% so that I could just completely feel that space. And Lord, don't we appreciate patient and willing spouses. We may get into that too, because I know you have one as well. Thank God for them.
Mm,
So having that just small time, and it wasn't a long to do, it was about 20-30 minutes, but just time to breathe
yeah.
and thank the space or allow the space to fill me with grief, but also gratitude of where I am right now. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're feeling extra griefy, take a bath. That would be the advice that I have
I love that
for
advice. I
today.
would I don't we just moved into a new apartment in Chicago, and
Okay.
our apartment doesn't have baths. It's only showers. So,
Okay.
that's not an option, but I will hold
Right.
that. I will hold that for the next place.
Yes. And when you come visit us in Texas, my bathhouse is your bathhouse. So you
Yes, yes,
get
I'm ready. Are y'all in Houston now?
we are in
Okay.
Houston. Yes, yes. You'll have to pull up.
Yes, I would love
So,
to.
yes, listen, our discussion is chock full of intention for today for listeners because I want them to get a good understanding of your story and how grief plays a role in the overall cancer diagnosis, but also the healing journey as well.
Yeah.
I want to be 100% honest and transparent that prior to this discussion, I don't have much knowledge of cancer and the nuances, and I love how vulnerable you've been with your explanation of it. And one, I know because you're a scholar, like you get it, but you explain it in a way that anyone can adopt and understand and empathize with. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so with my first question, I want you to share a little bit more about the onset of your cancer journey and the initial feelings that you experienced around receiving your breast cancer diagnosis.
Yeah. So, I, like you mentioned in my bio, I have a PhD in public health. So I think I have a higher knowledge than than average folks around what are the symptoms of cancer. Like what are some things we should be like worried about if you think you might be at risk for cancer. And so 2 years ago, I was wrapping up my breastfeeding journey with my second daughter, and she loved the breast. Okay,
Yeah.
my homegirl was a eater, and so it was starting to get overwhelming, and I was like, okay, we need to wean off or whatever. After we weaned, I felt a kind of a lump in my breast on the right side, and I was like, oh, it's probably a clogged milk duct. I just stopped breastfeeding, so trying to like express the milk out and stuff like
Right.
that, and nothing was working, right? So I was like, I had in the back of my mind, like, this could be cancer. And I didn't say that because like I wanted to have cancer, right?
Right.
Or I wasn't trying to like manifest something negative, but I'm like, I'm trying to be just alert, trying to be aware of my body. And I just know like in the back of my mind, this needs to be looked at. So I try to get appointments to get like a mammogram. And at the time I was a postdoc at UNC, and they have this like free mammogram program for staff. So I was like, perfect. I'm gonna go just call them up, get an appointment, boom, boom, boom.
Easy peasy, right?
Easy peasy, right? So I called them. I'm like, hey, I feel a lump. Can I get a mammogram through this program? And they're like, oh no, like you're too young. Two, you already have a lump, so we can't accept you in the program, which that's a whole nother problem that, we could talk about. But and then three, you just stop breastfeeding. So there's a lot of changes with your breast when you're breastfeeding. And I'm like, okay, this sounds a little bogus, but if those are the rules, those are the rules. And I wish I would have pushed back a little bit more. But anyway, so fast forward a couple of weeks, my nipple inverts on the right side. That's another like sign that, it could be cancer. So immediately I'm like going into panic mode. I'm like, okay, I know this is probably cancer because I have like two of the major signs or symptoms of cancer
And you already tried to call a flag on the play, and
already.
and I know you said that you were too young at the. So how old were you, or how young were you at that point?
So I was 33
Wow.
when all of this started going down. I had just turned 33, and I think the program was for like 40 plus women, right? So once the nipple inverted, I was like, okay, and now I know I need to get an appointment. So I'm calling UNC Cancer Hospital, like, I need a mammogram, I need a mammogram. And I could not get an appointment. They were like, you need a referral from the so and so and the this and that. And because I was new to Chapel Hill, coming back from moving back to Chapel Hill, I had to get a primary care physician first, and then the primary care physician could then refer me to get a mammogram at UNC Cancer Hospital. So long story short, this is like November of 2022,
Mm.
right? I don't get an appointment for primary care until April of 2023. That's
You
how
are
long it took.
lying. Uh,
In Chapel Hill, North Carolina, with one of the best cancer hospitals in the country. So when I get the appointment, she, does her manual exam. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you need to go to the cancer hospital immediately." So I immediately get an appointment at the cancer hospital. They do a mammogram, they do an ultrasound, they do a biopsy the same day, right? And if anybody is familiar with any of this, listeners, if they're doing all of that in the same day, you already
yeah.
kind of know, like, this is not
Mm.
good. So I didn't get my results until the following day. So this was May 4th, 2023, where I got the phone call. And by that point, I already knew what it was. And I just had like this glimmer of hope that it might be just like some type of fibrosis or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I get the call from my nurse, and she's like, "Rebekah, I'm so sorry." Um, and I just broke down. I broke down in my kitchen. I was just sobbing because my whole life kind of like flashed before my eyes. I'm just like, I don't know what this means. Like, I know I have
Mm.
to go through treatment. I don't know. At this point, I didn't know what stage I was in. So basically, it was like, if you're stage 4, that's not curable. That means it's spread to your bones or your lungs or some other type of part of
Mm-hmm.
your body. And so I was just in panic mode for the first week or so, where I was just, very, very scared and didn't actually want to tell people until I had
Yeah.
some more
Definitive
information,
answers.
and
Mm.
it was just hard. Yeah,
My
absolutely.
goodness. I mean, there's so many things, and I know we've only gotten a quarter of the way, if that, through the story, but I'm just thinking through the advocacy, and the main thing that's in my head is like, believe Black women. Like, when we tell you something is going on with our bodies, believe us the first time, because I'm sure, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I want to hear it from you, but I'm sure there's this feeling of the audacity, because I tried to tell you all this whole
Hmm.
time, and then we were going through all of these cycles and red tape and referrals and all of that, and it's like, but
Exactly.
I know my body, and especially from the vulnerable place of breastfeeding, because I
Hmm.
know breastfeeding at Zoe and Ava 18 months each, and like they both got the eviction notice, they both like they both didn't want to leave, right? But it's
Hmm.
like, you're already going through this, I call it a mourning process of that weaning, because that's such a sacred special time with your little one, and you're their
It
sustenance, and to
is.
go from that into the other side of the spectrum of now having to fight
Hmm.
for your own advocacy. My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's that point about believing Black women. It's like, having had, I breastfed with Naomi for 18 months. I breastfed Iman for about 14 months. And so, like, I know my breasts. Like, I have been in
Yeah.
the trenches with my breasts. You know what I mean? So, like, when I notice something different, I'm touching them, I'm expressing, I'm doing all these things for, at that point, 3 years now. So it just feels so insulting for somebody to be like, "No, you have to go through these different steps," when it's like, I know what's happening to my body, and I just need you to confirm it so that we can make a plan.
Right. Oh, so after that confirmation, or as you're awaiting which stage that you were at that time, um, tell me more about once they let you know the stage, and the cascade of things that were to follow.
Yeah. So I had to do like a number of different scans. So they basically do like a bone scan. They do all types of like PET scans and CAT scans to basically look at my entire body, to see if there's anything else in the body that could indicate that the cancer has spread anywhere else. Um, Fortunately, it did not, but unfortunately, because the delay was so long, it did go into my lymph nodes. So once there's lymph node involvement, typically that's automatically stage 3, which for me in my mind stage 3 just sounds very close to stage 4. And so again, more
Absolutely.
panicking, you know? And at the time I could actually feel the bump. It had gotten so big, that I could feel it. I could see it through my shirts. And so, I was just very, very, very concerned, very scared, not knowing what stage 3 meant in terms of like what the prognosis was, how long I had to live, like what the treatment plan was going to be. It was just a lot to take on. It was a lot to take on. And I think I immediately, or me and my husband, Javon, we both went into like survival mode.
Yeah.
So I think even in the beginning phase, like the first few days, as we were like telling close family and friends, there was a lot of grief coming up, a lot of tears, a lot of just pure emoting with my family and friends when we told them. But once we started getting into the treatment, it was like I didn't even have access to my emotions. It was like
Mm.
I need to do, I need to go to my appointments. I need to take these pills. I need to get these infusions. I got on a clinical trial. I was like, I am going to live. And in order to
Wow.
do that, I think my body just kind of shut down all negative emotions. So I wasn't crying.
Mm.
I was angry, but I wasn't
Yeah.
crying. And I'm a crier, right? So like it
Yeah.
felt very weird to not have access to that release.
So
But
kind of
we
like
were
compartmentalizing that
100%.
grief of like, I'm going to sit it on the shelf. I'll
Mm-hmm.
get to it. I know I got to get to it, but for
Mm-hmm.
now there's work to be done to save your life. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. I remember writing in my journal, it's like, I haven't cried in 3 weeks, like since the diagnosis. What is wrong with me? Like I feel sad and this is obviously very scary, but like I just cannot tap into those emotions. And it was like months where I just didn't
Mm.
cry because I was just so focused on I need to do these things to stay alive. And crying is not part of that right now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry for what you've gone through. I think oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to sit with friends and families, loved ones that are going through grief because we have this knee jerk reaction of, I couldn't imagine and I just want to skip
Mm,
over it. And I don't want
mm-hmm,
to even access that part of my body that would let myself. But
mm-hmm,
in sitting with you in it, and that's why I'm so thankful and blessed for this very unique side of grief where you now have gone through it, but you're allowing yourself to sit with others. I sit
mm-hmm,
with that and I can imagine how scary that is. And I'm so sorry that the systems that are supposed to protect us in that moment failed you. And I imagine it fails many. And that's a
mm-hmm,
lot of centering of the work that you do. So I'm
mm-hmm.
honored to know you and that work that you do for yourself and that advocacy that you do for others. I'm just so sorry. I'm so sorry, Rebekah.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you did allow yourself to start feeling, because I imagine there's a process of you got to keep on doing the things and making the appointments and going to chemo and all of those, that process. I remember reading something that you posted that really got me because it's
Mm,
about 2 years that my mom has been gone. So I feel as though there's some parallels in our grieving journey from the sense of feeling deep loss and life as you thought it would be, and now it's
yes.
not life
Yeah.
as you thought it would be.
Yeah.
But you wrote and shared something that I refer to as grief in real time, where we're not on
Mm-hmm.
the other side yet. It's not testimony time. I've not quite beat it, but I'm going to go ahead and share. I'm going to go ahead and share
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's what God has deemed all of us to do is share grief in real time. But you wrote something that was very moving, and I'd love to share it with your permission.
Yeah, of course.
You said that this was around last year. You said you're grieving so many things: your body, your plans, your curls, and certainty that you'll even grow old. And that I sat with that because that's such a reality, and it's a cascade of grief. It's like compounded grief where it's
Mm-hmm.
not just the diagnosis, but it's the life that you've built prior to, and now this diagnosis is
Absolutely.
smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So how has your grief journey evolved from then? I know that was about a year ago to
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah, good. Oh, thank you. Good question. Well, my curls came back. Um,
Popping. Can I listen? Pause for the curls. We'll always pause
The
for the curls.
curls
And if you're
came
listening
back.
to this, wait till you can see this because my sister is giving what needs to be given. Okay?
Yes.
Beautiful.
So the curls came back. But I think there's still a lot of uncertainty, right? I am on a lot of medications, right? I am because the type of cancer that I have, it responds to estrogen, right? So basically, the cancer was feeding off of the estrogen in my body to grow. And so what that means is, in order to prevent the cancer from coming back, I had to go into what is called a chemically induced menopause. So
Wow.
I take a monthly shot that has shut down my ovaries. I take a daily and hormone blocker that shuts down all the estrogen that is floating around my body. And so I'm in full menopause right now. So hot flashes, vaginal dryness, painful sex, mood swings, all of the kind of symptoms that we know about menopause. I have those, but they're more intensified because it's chemically induced and not a natural menopause.
Wow. So is that almost like and forgive me because I'm probably going to get a lot of this wrong,
No, it's fine.
but please correct me. But I'm thinking through like when you have interventions in labor, like what is that they give you to help speed up your labor?
Oh,
Pitocin, where
yes.
it's like labor's already hard,
And it
right?
makes it more
And it
intense.
makes it more intense because now this is an intervention that your body doesn't really know that it's kind of like trying to fight, and it's just
Exactly.
cataclysmic. Is that kind
Exactly.
of what that?
Exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly right. So it's basically, your body your body knows what it's doing, right? My body knows when it's supposed to go into menopause. And the fact that I'm being like thrust into menopause, everything is kind of haywire. So all of the symptoms are tenfold. And so I'm taking a lot of medications to deal with the symptoms. So I'm taking medications to prevent cancer from coming back, but then that's causing all of these massive symptoms. So now I'm taking medications to deal with the symptoms, right? So I say
Wow.
that to say the grief journey is it's so extended because people think once the cancer is gone, once you have the surgery, once you get the implants, right? Um, you're kind of on the other side of it. But I'm taking medications every single day for the rest of my life, right? And medications, they have various different effects on you. And that's what I'm kind of dealing with now. And so when I think about when I said I'm grieving my plans, my husband and I have so many plans, right? We
Yeah.
are planners, we are dreamers. And so now I have to take into consideration, am I going to have access to my medication if we decide we want to go live abroad for a
Yeah.
year?
Yeah.
What types of doctors am I going to have access to? Like, what if an accident happens and I'm not able to get my medication? Like all of these things. So like all of this medication and processes that I have to do to maintain my health have to be taken into consideration for the rest of my life. And then thinking about, this idea that I still don't know if I'm going to grow old, right? And I have faith and I believe that I will, and I'm trying to do the best that I can to live a healthy life. And I still don't know, right?
Right.
I went to get a haircut a couple weeks ago, and I'm talking to the barber, and she's just really sweet. And I was like, this is my first professional haircut since my cancer, so I'm like a little nervous about it. And she was like, oh, I also I'm a cancer survivor. And I was like, oh my goodness, oh thank you for sharing. And so we started talking about that, and she was like, yeah, mine came back 3 times. So she has gone through cancer treatment 3 times. She has had surgery multiple times. She's gone through chemo. And so like I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
And I think the uncertainty for somebody like me that is a planner, now you heard all the degrees that you read off.
Yeah.
Like I have,
Yeah.
very structured plans for my life, but to not know that I might have to go through this journey all over again if this cancer comes back, it feels so in a lot of time a lot of times it can feel very debilitating.
Yeah.
Like, I want to excel in my career. Like I want to be a good mother. I want to be a good community member. I want to be all these things. But, what's the point of it all if, I have to keep going through this? And what's the point of it all if I only have, 15, 20 years left? So that's like the more drastic, more dramatic side of things, but it comes up often. It's a thought that I have to really manage, and I have to kind of cope with, because it's kind
Yeah.
of always in the back of my head.
And I love how you explain, because I intimately know that too, where it's this battle of, well, my faith is strong, but I'm still human, so I still
Hmm.
have those feelings. And I think for generations before us, it's, well, if you're having those feelings, that means your faith isn't strong. It's like, but
Right.
both and, right? I can have
Hmm.
strong faith. I can believe that God is a healer, all of those things. That doesn't mean that because my faith is strong that I'm not allowed to have a grieving process.
Hmm.
And I'm so proud of you for being at a stage in your life where you can wrap your arms around both.
Hmm.
And I think that message for others is going to free some people, because
Hmm.
they may be in a situation where folks are just telling them after another, well, you got to have faith, you got to be strong if you don't
Listen,
believe. And it's
listen.
like,
I want to
listen,
actually want to touch on that
yes,
because
please.
because it's something that definitely happened to me when I was first diagnosed through treatment. That I will call folks, or folks would call me, because I really wasn't doing a lot of calling, if I'm being honest. Folks would call me and be like, how are you doing? And I'd be like, well, today, can I curse?
Yes.
Okay. Today
And
fucking
why did I get
sucks.
so wait, but also, why did I get so excited about, I guess as adults we don't talk to many people, and we don't hear I was like, yes,
Yes, you can.
curse, go there.
Um, but I'd be like, today fucking sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
And they'd be, well, you just pray about it. I'm like, well, that's not what I want to hear right now, and that's not helpful. I had one family member call and basically say something along the lines of like, I need to hear that you're doing better. And it's like, well, what about what I need? I'm not doing well. So do you want me to just get on the phone and lie to you? Because if that's the case, I don't need to talk to you. Like, and so I think people really mean well when they say things like, I want you to have faith. I want you to pray. I want you to do all those things. But you have to understand people are at different places, right?
Yeah.
I told people when I first got diagnosed, like, I don't want to pray with you right now. I don't want you to send me gospel songs. I don't want any of that, because right now I'm angry. I'm angry at the world. I'm angry at God. I feel cheated. I feel like I had just accepted my first tenure track assistant professorship job, and I had exactly 3 weeks to be proud of myself and celebrate until I got the diagnosis. So like I felt like it just was not fair, and I want to be mad. I want to sit in this anger. I want to sit in this disbelief as long as I need to. And sending me gospel songs and scripture verses in my text messages is not helping me. Maybe it's
Right.
helpful for you, and you go ahead and read those scriptures.
Yeah.
You go ahead and listen to the songs if that makes you feel better about my diagnosis, but that's not helpful for me. So I had to tell people, like, and Javon, I think my husband Javon did a really good job of like telling people in our circle, like, now's not the time, because
Yeah.
I was not able to receive it.
He put the guardrails up for you.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Let's go there.
Yeah.
An intentional spouse, to be able to hold your hand through something that you all didn't plan. When you're standing, I think about when you're standing up there and you're giving the vows. You all had a beautiful wedding, by the way. But you're sharing the vows, and you say those things, till death do
Hmm.
us part, and all those kind of things. But then when it is displayed for you, and now you're called to act upon those vows, that's a heavy, because we didn't talk about that in premarital counseling, that
Hmm.
I'm gonna have a parent die. We didn't talk about maybe I get cancer, all of those
Hmm.
things. And so talk to me about how you all created this rhythm and this coverage for you. And I'm sure this is an ongoing process, but
Yeah.
take us there.
Ooh, man. My husband is a gem of a human being. I quite literally would not be where I am personally, professionally, health wise if it weren't for his support. And I'm just, if anything makes me cry during this podcast, it'll be talking about him just because I feel so lucky and so blessed to have a best friend and partner like him. The way that he just stepped up to do things that were needed of him in our time of crisis, even though he was also going through the crisis, right? To hear that your best friend and your partner and the mother of your kids has a life-threatening disease puts you in crisis as well.
Yeah.
And so for him to step up to be able to take care of me, to take care of the girls, to take care of our home, to take care of the dog, to be the communication person between me and my family, to coordinate meals because a lot of our community decided they wanted to like shower us with gifts and meals and all these kinds of things. And he was kind of the point person to contact. He came to every single appointment. He sat with me when I was getting my infusions, which could be, 4 or 6 hours. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. He was just everything. He was everything that I could have wanted and needed during this time. It was a nightmare, and he was right by my side every single time. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And I think too, in addition to him, the way that our community, especially folks from UNC, just showed up. Like I will say, say what you want about UNC, the institution, right? But the folks, the friendships and the bonds that we have created, the Black folks at UNC, they have really, really, really showed up for our time of crisis. And I'm
good comes through that soil. Good comes from that soil.
Oh boy, I'm just so grateful for the community that showed up for us. People bringing us home cooked meals and setting up meal trains and coming to watch the kids or taking the kids. We had a couple friends who were living in Durham who took the kids for an afternoon and just allowed us to have some breathing space. So yeah, we just, community is everything in moments like this.
My goodness. There's so many different ways that we could go. I want to make space for the social media segment for today because I want to hear your thoughts on this survivor's point of view. And also to communicate that there is no one shoe fits all. Everybody's process is different, and everybody's looking at their perspective of grief through a different lens that could be cultural, could be the dynamics of their family and all of that. And so wanting to make as much space for that as possible and knowing that hopefully something that we discussed today will resonate, help, heal, inform. Here's the call out for today.
My girlfriend called me one day, for instance, from California and just said, I apologize. And I'm like, girl, why are you apologizing to me? Meanwhile, I'm on the pillow like, what you apologizing? I can barely lift my head. And she says, you make going through cancer look so easy. And it really knocked me upside my head. I'm thinking, girl, ain't nothing easy about it. But because I didn't share, because I don't want everybody to feel what I'm feeling. I lost friends. I lost relationships because of going through cancer. Me going through it. But because they haven't dealt with death and health issues of their own, they couldn't have me around. But it worked out. So when you're going through it, allow yourself to feel so that you can fight it. If you don't call it, I don't believe in claiming things, but you have to call it what it is.
That clip comes from the Tiger Lily Foundation, and that's from TikTok. We'll link to it in the show notes. But Rebekah, what comes up for you when you hear and see that?
Things. The friendship piece is something that I was not expecting. I wouldn't say that I've lost friends, but I will say that I expected certain people to show up, and a lot of those people that I expected to show up did, and they showed up hard. Like one of my best friends taught me, also from UNC. As soon as I told her, she was like, "I'm coming." Like,
shout out to her.
She was like, "I'm coming." When do you start treatment? Okay, that week I'm coming. And she was there for my first week of chemo, right? Um, One of my other best friends, Natalie, came to visit me twice during treatment, sat with me in the room, in the infusion room. One of my other good friends, Anthony, came to visit, and a lot of other like and stayed with me. A lot of people came to visit just for a day or to bring food. So like a lot of people showed up for me in a way that was really beautiful. And also,
Yeah.
a lot of people that I expected to show up did not. And not only did they not show up, they disappeared.
Mm.
They did not check on me. They did not text or call or message Javon and it hurt,
Yeah.
you know, it hurt because it felt like, oh, I, for one reason or another, maybe childhood trauma, I kind of pride myself on as being a person that doesn't really, need a lot, right? And that's a trauma response that
Mm-hmm.
I'm working through. Um, but like my whole life, I've not wanted to be a burden for people. And so the one time in my life where I'm like being vulnerable and being open and telling people like, I can't do this by myself. Like I'm sharing this, not because I want attention, not because I, want any of this, um, extra attention on me, but because I know that this is going to be hard and I know I need my people to come support me and to have some people who I have, been in relationship with for a long time just disappear. That was very, very painful. It was very, very painful. And like now really just starting to like, because we're kind of out of survival mode right now, I'm really
Yeah.
starting to like reflect and think about that and um, how much it hurt for people not to show up. Um, so yeah. So
I'm
that's one
so
thing that I just
sorry.
really didn't expect.
Yeah.
That comes up for me when I hear that video.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I think the grief surrounding the loss and fizzle out of relationships, even if it's not something where there's an argument or discord, but just the silence, because you're already silenced by the grief, or you feel isolated on an island all by yourself, and then to have that kind of sideswipe you seemingly
Mm,
out of nowhere, that just brings a whole new level. It's like this pulsating. I'm so sorry. I'm encouraged by you sharing this because there's someone listening, watching that just got a diagnosis. There's also someone listening, watching who just found out that their friend or loved one got a diagnosis.
hmm
And so to hear your strength and your resilience, but also your vulnerability and saying, that sucked. Don't let that happen.
hmm
That's
hmm
a call to action. That's a call to action. And I
hmm
hope that someone will take that and they'll do the thing. They'll send the text. They'll show up in whatever capacity that they
Right.
can, because
Yeah.
that's what community is. And you deserve that coverage.
hmm
Anybody going through deserves that coverage.
Absolutely. And I think part of it too is that people don't know what to say, right?
Mm,
I think it's very similar when somebody dies and we don't know how to give support when somebody is experiencing a family death because we are not used to having conversations around grief, around death, around cancer, around all these things. Like, and so we don't know what the right thing to say is. And I even had people text me like some long, long paragraphs. It's like, I don't know what to say, but I want you to know that I'm thinking about you, that I love you. And I'm like, that's fine. That's
yeah.
enough. Like it's enough to know that people are thinking about me, even if you don't have the right terminology. Like I don't even have the right terminology and I'm the one going through it, right? So like just say what's on your heart, say what you feel. Um, and yeah, pray, send vibes, send thoughts, send food, send money, like, send
Yeah.
childcare,
Yeah.
like do something, that kind of expresses how you feel. But like disappearing is hurtful and
Yeah.
disappearing is hurtful. So if anybody's listening that, has a friend who was recently diagnosed or going through something, say something, right? Say something heartfelt. And yeah. engage in a way that makes sense for you, that you have the capacity.
Thank you. What coping strategies have you found most helpful in navigating grief and the ongoing challenges of survivorship?
Never been good at coping strategies. I think early on, when I realized that what I was experiencing was grief, I was doing a lot of reading around grief. Um, and I think I was trying to be intentional about developing a ritual. So I think it was New Year's of last year. So going into 2024, my husband and I actually did a grief ritual where we wrote down things that we were kind of letting go of
Tell
for
us more.
2023. Yeah,
Grief
yeah.
ritual. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was something that I kind of borrowed from the Francis Weller book that I know you had a conversation with Trey about. And Trey
Yeah.
actually, speaking of UNC community, Trey actually sent me the Francis Weller book, um,
Listen.
um, just as a gift during my treatment. And so that
Wow.
was really, really helpful for me. Um, so yeah, so I went to my husband and I was just like, hey, I think I want to do a grief ritual for New Year's. And at the time we were living in Chapel Hill, we had just bought a house and we had this really big side yard, and we had spent about 4 months working on a fire pit in the side yard. And by we, I
Mm.
mean Javon spent like 4 months working on. I was like, I want a fire pit, and he did it. That was one of the things. Like I was like, my cancer treatment, cancer journey, I need a fire pit so I could sit outside in front of the fire.
Yes. Yes.
So my man, he digs out a fire pit. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So we sat by the fire often. And so I was like, I think I want to do a brief ritual that involves the fire pit and us sitting out there and like
Mm.
really being intentional about writing down the things that we're letting go of or that we're leaving in 2023.
Wow.
Um, to really kind of try to start fresh in 2024. And one of the things that I remember him talking about was like resentment of feeling like, as the caregiver, feeling um, just resentment of the whole process of like everything
Hmm.
falling on him, of like having to take care of everything. For
Valid.
me, it's so valid, so valid. And for me, I said a lot of things, but the main thing that I wrote down was like, I'm trying to let go of this anger. This anger was just, it was like eating me alive, because I was just so, um, still very confused and upset around like, why me,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it was very hard for me to like escape from this why me feeling all the time. And so that was one of the things that I was trying to let go of in 2023. And so, yeah, that was our ritual. That was and I now that I'm mentioning it, I'm like, I need to do this again for this New Year's because
Hmm.
a lot of stuff has started to come up on this other side of this more, inactive treatment that we need to work on. But yeah, that was one of the coping mechanisms that I think was really helpful um about this time last year. But right now, I think I'm just journaling, trying to journal
Yeah.
regularly. I would like to begin therapy soon,
Yes.
um, because there's so much to unpack and to process that I can journal, but it's not, the journal doesn't talk back to me. The
Right.
journal does not give
Right.
me tools. So like
Yeah.
it's nice to like get the thoughts and the feelings down on paper, but I think I also need someone to like help me process. And then like I mentioned earlier, I just started an antidepressant a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
And I know that's not really a coping mechanism, but um
It's not.
is it not? I don't know. Is it? I don't
I
know.
I I would say it is. I mean, it helps. Look, I'm not a doctor, but the anything that is prescribed and it's backed by research and it helps you to feel better and to be able to process pain.
Mm-hmm.
I can't deem that a bad thing. I would not
Mm-hmm.
dare deem that a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it has been like night and day. Um
Mm.
and so I started actually taking the antidepressant for um hot flashes because it
Wow.
was supposed to help with hot flashes
Okay.
from the menopause, right?
Menopause.
Yes. So Doctor prescribed it probably a couple months ago, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to do an antidepressant because I don't want my mood to go even more kind of haywire than it already is.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, just try it, and then we can adjust the dose if we need to, or you can stop it if it's not comfortable.
Wow.
And really, the first week, I noticed a major difference in my mood, like
Wow. In a
just
good way.
in a good way, much more
Ooh.
stable. I'm more patient with my children. I'm more focused at work. I think I just feel kind of like my baseline has just risen,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not dropping down into despair as often as I was before. So it is just it's night and day, honestly.
Wow.
And I just feel so grateful that they recommended it. And yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine when I was visiting LA last week, and I was like, yeah, I started antidepressants, and he was like, welcome.
Right.
Welcome,
It's nice
congratulations.
here. Stay a
It's nice
while.
on this side of town.
Yeah.
But just because I didn't realize how bad I was feeling until I'm not feeling it anymore. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I was really deep in the gutter. Because now I'm not, and I feel like this is a good normal for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you, and I hope that this helps to give those that are considering the permission, right? Not that you all need permission from Rebekah and I, right? But just to show that there's a bright side to that maybe it's not as scary as you may deem it to be going in. There are a lot of misconceptions. Do your research, arm yourselves with doctors who care about you and that will petition for you in the right ways.
Hmm.
But I'm so encouraged and glad to hear that has been helpful. And I'm a what is it a what are you I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate for medicine, therapy, all those things. Journaling. I'm going to start, and I'll need some more details on this grief ritual because I think that might be the
Yes,
move for me too.
yes.
Last question before some rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
I know that you are deeply involved in research on racism and health. And as a professor, I'm sure this ebb and flow of life, like it must show up in your work or how you
Hmm.
show up in a room as a professor. How has this personal experience with grief and cancer informed your teaching and your mentorship at that intersection of research, racism, health? I know that's a loaded question, but
Hmm.
take me there. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So in the field of public health, we are kind of trained to like kind of pick an area of expertise, like pick a health outcome that you're going to be like really knowledgeable about, and kind of really focus on that, and that becomes your kind of area. My area was not cancer,
Mm,
intentionally. Was not
mm-hmm.
interested in studying cancer, not because it's not important to study, obviously. But my mother was actually diagnosed with cancer when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Naomi.
Wow.
And I knew then it's not breast cancer, but it's a different kind of cancer. And but I knew then I was like, this is too close to home for me to really want to like do a deep dive and study cancer.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, after my diagnosis and kind of especially the drama and the trouble that it took for me to get a diagnosis, recognizing like all of these things are interconnected, right? Like everything that
Yeah.
I care about that I study is actually directly related to cancer inequities as well.
Mm,
So it's been hard to like not want to focus on cancer, but then at the same time, cancer is like informing everything that I do. How I, like you said, how I show up to work, how I engage with my students. So you know, I'm in a lot of these like professional development programs where they're like teaching you how to be a good mentor, right? And so many of them, people are like, well, I want my students to like dream about their work, and I want them to be excited about work, and I'm going to email them on Saturdays and Sundays, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that because my
mm,
experience with my personal life gives me the perspective that people have lives and people
yeah.
need breaks. And because I have my own life and I need breaks from this stuff, like we study heavy things, like I'm not going to make my students do above and beyond what they need to do well, right? Like I'm not
Right.
going to be texting them at 8 o'clock at night. I'm not. So I show up to work and I show up to particularly my mentoring relationships to basically treating you like a human first, right? And then the work is going to get done, right? The work is
Yeah.
the work. But like, first and foremost, you're a human with problems, with relationships, with health issues, with, deaths in the family. And, academic research is so low stakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to jeopardize our personal relationship, our work relationship, because I am um, neglecting the fact that you're a human with all of that entails to be a human. So that's how it shows up for me. I'm
What a
still not. I'm
gem.
still trying to. I'm trying to decide if I really want to like do some academic work around cancer, particularly my own journey. Um, we'll see. Stay tuned for that. But
Yeah.
right now, I'm just really trying to be um, uh, just give my students give them some grace and allow them to be their full human self.
You are a gem, Dr. Cross. Oh my goodness. Amazing. A bright light in any room. I know your students love to see you coming, but in
I
a
hope
good
so.
way.
I
In
hope
a
so.
good way. In the best way. Okay, so rapid fire questions. These are a way to leave a lasting impression, but get to know you. Not don't put too much stock in it. It meant to have a little bit of fun, but also still on topic. So my first one
Ready.
is: your teaching philosophy is a three-pronged approach to learn, connect, and challenge. I want to know, what are you learning in this season? How are you staying connected? And what are you challenging?
Ooh, so good. What am I learning in this season? I am learning to not um do too much over planning and trying to let go of control, which is tough.
A lesson for us
Um,
all.
let go of some control and kind of let life happen and just learn from those experiences of life happening rather than trying to manipulate all the, life happenings because, like I said, we're human.
Yeah.
What was the second one? What am I connecting to?
Yes. How are you staying connected?
How am I staying connected? Um, I am staying connected by being in my group chats, trying to be in my group
Mm,
chats more than social media, because this election
yeah.
season has been very trying and aggravating. And so I'm
You
trying
got to
to
protect
spend
your peace.
less time on social media, more time just talking to friends, picking up the phone and calling people, which I don't usually do. But I've been trying to do that some more.
I
Um,
love it.
and then what am I challenging? I'm always challenging power. I think my work does that. I try to do that with my children, like trying to challenge my own power as a parent, but also teaching them to like recognize when things are unfair. Um, because like what is the purpose of all of this if we can't really kind of work for a better life for everybody? So I really try to challenge how power works and how we understand power and what people can do with it.
That's dope. Okay, so you can only choose one. Kid free date night, and this date night doesn't end until like 2, 3 a.m.,
Okay.
or a 48-hour family vacay.
Kid free date night.
Amen. Amen. Come on, somebody. Watch those kids. See y'all. Tuck in. Have a good book. I'll see you in the
My
morning.
my sister, all three of my sister-in-laws, had our kids for like a week, and like they bounced around for my sister-in-law's houses, and Javon and I went to LA for like a week, and it was wonderful. It was
I
a very
love
nice
it.
vacation.
Oh,
Yeah.
more of that.
So
I've seen what you've
yes.
done for others. Lord, yes,
Yes.
more of
Thank you
that.
for sister-in-laws. Thank you for my sister.
Shout out to them. Okay, what's a resource? So this could be a book, a film, song, academic text that has meant a lot to you on this journey.
Ooh, the book by Mariam Kaba and Kelly Hayes called Let This Radicalize You. Um,
Mm.
there is a chapter in that book. So the whole book is just phenomenal, but there's a
Yeah.
chapter in that book called um, Grief and Joy Can Coexist. I think that's the name of the
Mm.
chapter. I might have
Okay.
butchered the name of the chapter, but
No,
basically
no.
the chapter is just about the ways um, that grief and joy can exist together. Like you don't have to sacrifice one in order to have the other. You don't have to sacrifice your joy in order to process your grief and vice versa. And I think the what was so meaningful about this chapter, and I know this is rapid fire, but
No,
um,
this is good.
what was so meaningful about this chapter is it touched on everything that I was going through. It touched on parenting. It touched on cancer. It touched on Palestinian lives and how
Mm.
Palestinians present such a strong example of how to hold grief and joy at the same time. Um,
Mm.
and I just thought it was just so beautiful. Like that chapter when I read it, I was just I mean it's drenched in my tears because I was just crying so much because it felt like I was just being seen and heard and it was, yeah, I just highly, highly recommend that book and that chapter.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. We will notate that in the show notes, and I am going to look that book up as well. That sounds amazing. Um okay, so as a mom of two young girls, what pieces of your story do you want them to hang on to the most?
Ooh. I think there's a couple of things. The first one is the safety of being vulnerable, or the importance of being vulnerable and how community can keep you safe in those moments, right? I think so often we are told, especially as Black women, that and Black girls, that we
Mhm.
are supposed to be strong, that big girls don't cry, and all of these messages that we get at a very, very young age to basically say, like, there is no space for you to be sad. There's no space for you to be vulnerable. There's no space for you to um, be weak and to cry. And I want to disrupt that. So
Mm.
when I was diagnosed, we were very open and honest with both of my girls, and my youngest was 2 at the time. Um, Maybe 1.5. And we were just honest with them. Like, here's what's
Yeah.
going on. This is what cancer is. And I'm going to lose my hair and I'm going to lose my eyebrows. And I'm going to be too tired to play on a lot of days. And they were there after I got out of a couple of days after I got out of surgery. And they saw my chest with no breast tissue on it. And they saw my scars. And um, basically, I was just trying to get through to them that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to lean on the people who love
Yeah.
you to help take care of you. And then it's okay to take care of yourself. So if that means there's certain things that you can't do, then don't do it. If that means you need to take a nap, take a nap.
Yeah.
If it means there's certain things you can't be for other people, then so be it. And to really think about like how we can rely on our community to help take care of each other.
You're such an awesome mommy.
I
I
try.
love
Thank
it.
you.
I love it. What's a good version of a text to send someone that just got a cancer diagnosis?
Well, it depends on the person's personality, I will
Mm-hmm.
say. So I tend to be on the more introverted side. Like I said, I have trouble, uh, like allowing myself to be a burden to people, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
what you might send to me might be different than what you might send to like your extroverted friend who's like in your face all the time, right?
Right.
Um, but I think, you know, sending something to let them know that you're thinking about them. Um, asking for their address so that you can send a care package,
Yeah.
and you can just Google cancer care package and then it can tell
Mm-hmm.
you like what to include. Um, what was helpful for me was people sending money for food, or people just sending food, which is
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
better because
Yeah.
then
Then you don't have to
there's
think
no
about
thought.
it.
Yeah, yeah, there's no
Yeah.
thought. So I had a mentor of mine at UNC, in the School of Public Health, Suzanne. She, when she found out that my chemo day was every Tuesday, she was like, I want to bring you and your family a home cooked meal every Tuesday, so you don't have to think about dinner on Tuesdays
Mm,
after chemo. And she did that for
that's
6 months.
love. That's
Every Tuesday for
love.
6 months. right?
Whew.
My sorority sisters, the Zetas at UNC, did the same thing, but for Friday. So every Friday for 6 months, I had home like a meal from a restaurant.
Shout out to
From my
them.
sorority sisters, right? So like those types of things, if you can do something tangible like that, I think that goes a really, really long way. Even if it's just, hey, here's, $30 to buy a meal. What's your address? I'm gonna send you some dinner tonight. Like those types of things that can kind of take some of those extra burdens, the cooking, the cleaning, the kind of everyday things that people have to do anyway. If you can take that burden off of your friends, then I think that will go a really long way. So
That's
sometimes it
exactly
doesn't even
it.
have to be a heartfelt message, right? 'Cause
Right,
some of us
right.
are
It's
not, some of
action.
us are not that good with words,
Right, right.
But if you can do something that shows them like, I want to make this a little bit easier for you. Even if in a small gesture,
I love it.
I would do that.
Last two. What has grief taken from you, and what has grief given you?
Ooh. I don't know so much that grief has taken anything from me. I think cancer has taken a lot from me.
Yeah,
And I'm grieving the things that cancer has taken from me, right?
absolutely.
Still. Like my breasts. Like, I look at my body every single day and I see these huge scars, right? It has completely changed my sex life, no longer having nipples. I won't go TMI, but it's just
Yeah.
very different, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
real.
It's very real. But I will say, I think it has given me a much needed reminder that people do love me, people care about me, and people are willing to show up in so many different kinds of ways to support me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that reminder. So I think
Yeah.
I feel very grateful that I have the community that I did that just showed up. And I don't know that I would have had that reminder without this crisis. So I think that's what it's given to me. This reminder of like how deeply and widely my people love me and my family.
They don't play about you.
They do
And
not
you
play.
are worthy. You are more than worthy. Thank you so much for this conversation, for your heart, for your transparency, like all the things and all the ways. I continue to pray for you. I know that this is going to help someone process a diagnosis, process their feelings, grief in general, in so many ways. Like when we put those things out into the world, we don't even know. We just like trust and believe that God's going to do something with it and share it where it's supposed to be. And I know full well that it will be because of your heart. And you are beautiful inside and out. So that's a reminder to you. How can people keep up with you? If they have questions, how can they engage with you? Or is there anything that this community can do to support you?
Yeah, so I am on the socials at Rebekah Cross, RISRAELCROSS on Instagram and Twitter. And same rebekahcross@gmail.com if folks want to connect over research stuff, over cancer stuff. Yeah, happy to connect. I have a lot of different research projects going on that are focused on Black families in Chicago. And so if folks are interested in that, yeah, hit me up.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Rebekah. This has been a glorious conversation. Y'all, take what you need, leave what you don't, share it with someone you think needs it the most. This has been Grief in the Raw. I'm your host, Kelli Holloway, and thank you for joining in. Be well. Thank you for joining me, Kelli Holloway, inside of today's episode. For a deeper dive, remember you can watch this episode on YouTube and listen on your favorite audio streaming platform. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. For more information about Grief in the Raw podcast and to connect with me, my special guest, and the Grief in the Raw community forum, visit kellyandco.com. All links are in this episode's description. Tremendous thanks to the producer of Grief in the Raw, Miss Bethany Anderson, and major shout out to Jeffrey Smith, who curated the soundtrack for the pod.